Hello, Guy Robinet here, and today we are going to take a first look at the modwave native. When you start the modwave native, you will see a play screen, which is basically a simplified screen of everything that is going on in the modwave native. And it's a quite deep and also fantastic synth, but you have to know your way around it. And in this video we are going to take a look at some of the basic elements of the modwave native. Okay, let's start. When you start the modwave native, you will get the Cassini preset. And that's a performance. And a performance is basically made out of 2 layers with 4 oscillators, and it sounds like this. So that was a lot what was going on, and when we are looking at the basic elements of this sound, you will see that we have 2 layers over here. And the first layer has 2 wavetables, and the second layer has a sample and also a wavetable. And it's all controlled by a Kaos physics engine, which is connected to all the parameters and moving things in this specific sound. So we are going to look to what the Kaos physics engine does. You can hear that it basically adds all kind of modulation routings to that sound. And you can give it a sweep. So really nice, and if you don't like this behavior of this Kaos physics engine, you can program it yourself, or you can select one of the many presets that are in there for the specific Kaos engine. So let's use another one. This has a different programming of the Kaos engine, and if we try it now, it's very slow, friction, time set. Basically runs to the center now. So really handy to try and experiment with this engine. Another thing that is important to know is we have now the Cassini performance, but it's made out of programs, and you can create those programs yourself, but you can also select a different program for that, and it instantly changes your sound. So let's modify this Cassini preset and select one of the new programs. Now we have a lot of them, but just let's select one, the little pirate saw for instance. So we have changed 2 things now. We have the Kaos physics engine, and we have selected a new program for layer A. We leave layer B the same, and watch what happens now. So I did almost nothing, and instantly we have a huge ambient pad sound just by changing this preset and this preset in one of the many performances. You can experiment a lot with this, and it will, well, you can do anything you want. Another thing you can do is selecting different wavetables by clicking on the wavetable name. and you will get lots of wavetables to choose from, but more on that later. If you want to make detailed modifications to this preset, you go to the edit page and you will get lots of tab pages to modify your sound in depth. And for instance, if you go to see layer A, we click layer A and it's purple, and here you can set the synth engine of layer A. You can set the ARP settings if you want to use that, or you can use the effects. We have a sequencer with all kinds of elements that you can route through the whole system in a timing lane and a timing lane. We have an effects section for the insert effects, and for the main effects we have a reverb and a main EQ to use on all those sounds. For layer B we have the same, and we can set up the zone and scales, and to see all the modulation routings that are in there. There's a new modulation list where you can see quite quickly what kind of modulations are, well, used to make up this sound. Another thing is the librarian. Here you can select any of your performances, or you can select it over here, which is basically the same, and you can select one of the presets over here. So that's basically the standard interface. And by filtering you can also zoom in into the presets. You can also add your own collection if you bought collections or if you made them yourself. So if we are looking at my own sounds, well, there are a lot of them, over 100 I think. So let's try to create a quick sound ourselves. So let's upload up an init performance. That's basically the default performance where nothing has been set. Well, that's not entirely true. You have a basic element that you can use. And if you go into the detailed synth editor by clicking on edit layer A, you will see in the synthesis tab that we have the volume of oscillator 1 and 2. So just let's focus on oscillator 1 now. And we have the basic sawtooth over here. And in a wavetable synth you can scroll through the wavetable with the position knob. And a wavetable is basically a set of waveforms behind each other where you can scroll through. So if we are listening to it now, you can select any of those waveforms over here. And the crosswave width is for the interpolation between the samples. So if you set it to 0, you hear the separate samples. So there are 4 samples in this one, which is a basic sample, which you can use. So, and if you want to morph between the samples, you can do that also. There's an envelope parameter for this, which is basically this one for the oscillator 1. And if you open it, it will scroll automatically based on your envelope over here. So it will take, let's see, 1 second to the top and 1 second to the down. If you want to have it slower, just click on that and it will go slower. Now, when you want to select a different waveform, you can do it also. So my advice would be to set the envelope to maximum and set this one to 1 second. Then you can easily go through those wavetables in the browser. So a lot of things to choose from. You also hear some distortion in it. And this is a little trick. This is because this is such a busy wavetable that it needs to be slowed down to actually make the most out of it. So it crackles now, but if you set it to a higher volume, you will hear that it's going to be much usable. It's much more usable then. and of course set it also back. So a lot of things to choose from. You can also add your own wavetables. So if we look into the wavetables over here, I've added a lot of wavetables for myself for this, and that can drastically change the sound of your mod wave by adding your own sounds. So if we check, well, I have no idea, but just select one. Let's use the fast one. And this is a really nice way to use the wavetables. Now, when you are going to use those wavetables yourself, let's add up one of my own presets to hear what you can do with that. For instance, a preset from the CMI, Fairlight Choir. I've created wavetables of that and created programs for this, and that sounds like this. Get the drift. Lots of things that you can do with it, and if you want something different, let's do something with the sequencer. Well, this is based on the basic waveform, but if we are going to check one of my own, so another of my presets where I use some interesting features of the modwave native is, for instance, the Sea Creatures Choir. If you load that one up, you will use one of the basic wavetables and basically use that on a sample with amplitude modulation to create all kind of wavetable effects in your own samples that you are adding to it, and then it sounds like this. And you can set your mod knobs. So in one of the next videos we are going to take a look at how to create these kind of sounds. For now I think it's a lot of information, and let's leave it with this. So there's a lot to discover. When you start with the native, just try to use the included programs and presets and wavetables to change things and get some knowledge about how the things are working in the modwave. Because when you start diving into all these kind of things and layers, and then it can get quite complicated. So we are going to take an in-depth look later on, but for now just start with using the presets and investigating the modwave native. That's it for now and see you again in the next video.